you should only be taking stabs at deals that you think you're really going to win. And that's just because if they're totally happy, their coverage is great, their pricing is great, and their service, you got no new ideas, right? There's nothing crazy you can offer. I just don't see a point wasting your time trying to go market something.
The word due diligence seems to be all the rage these days, thanks to you. Love it or hate it. Some people love it. Some people hate the word. It's often misunderstood, often duplicated, never replicated, or I don't know if that's how you say it. So let's talk about what due diligence means to you when you say it. And then we have one that you're currently working on right now where you're going through this process, and we'll kind of walk through it live and in action in the heat of the moment. So
Yep.
When you say due diligence, what does it mean to you? And is that really just a fancy word for policy review?
Great question. And be prepared, because you're going to get this if you're using this lingo on a cold call, you're going to get people asking you, what do you mean by due diligence? And you don't want to be sitting fumbling over your words necessarily. So what I've found best is, like, if you ask me that question, I'll just say, yeah, hey, great question. Really, it's just a process that I follow that helps business owners answer pretty much about 3 questions. 1, are you overpaying? 2, are you missing anything? Or is your broker missing anything? And 3, could you be doing something different? That could really help you attract more interest from underwriters, reduce costs, improve your situation, your efficiency, whatever. So that's what I mean by due diligence. I think it's important when you're, talking with basically prospects to make it relevant to them, right? And so that's really all you have to do when you're explaining due diligence. You don't have to try to make it sound fancier than it is. I always go back to what are the problems it solves? And the problems it solves is prospects not really knowing what they don't know, right? That's one of the problems. So they have curiosity, right? The other problem is that quoting is a pain in the butt, and that's another problem that you solve, right? So they're curious, but the way to solve the curiosity problem is the only way they know is quoting. And so due diligence basically solves that, because it says, hey, instead of quoting to kind of put your mind at peace, there's a different way. That's what I call due diligence, right? So it's going to sound different every time someone asks you, but that's the core thing, is like, bring it back to the problems that due diligence solves. That's really what it, more so rather than what it is, what does it solve? That's really, I think, is a better way to think about it. So people, that seems to resonate well. I think you'd agree with that, Trey. Like, when you drop that on people, they're like, it's hard to say no to that, right?
Yeah, I've had a little, thanks to you. I think the curiosity angle does much better than, hey, we've saved this guy 30%, because I think the curiosity brings in more people. You'll get the guy who's the low-hanging fruit, but then you also get the guy that is unsure, but now you've poked the bear and he's, you know what? I've never had somebody say it like that before. Maybe that is something I'm interested in. And as far as like decision makers and the value proposition, it is, it's the thing that I like about it is you are overcoming their biggest objection, which is rocking the boat with their agent right up front, to get answers that they don't have. And so, like, you're giving them the biggest thing they want. How do I know what I don't know? And you're doing it by solving their biggest objection without rocking the boat, their biggest objection. So I don't know. I'm a fan.
I was trying to think of a good analogy. I was thinking of because I think quoting, one thing that resonates well too is like when you talk to these, especially if it's an office manager or controller who's quoted, and the owner says, yeah, go get quotes, right? But they're not doing all the heavy lifting of it all. And so when you're talking with like these office managers or whoever, who are basically the gatekeepers and quasi decision makers, it's got to feel easy for them, right? And so they get it. Like, if you can be like, hey, quoting takes a ton of time as well, and you go through all those hoops, hoping that someone has a decent option for you. Wouldn't you rather just know up front if quoting even makes sense? Maybe it doesn't make sense at all, right? And it's kind of like the pull-away effect. Like, the door, what is that? The door handle closed, where it's like you're walking out of the office like, I guess we're not really a fit. You kind of, and well, wait, come back. And so it's kind of like that deal where it's like, I don't even know if we're a fit or if we can even help you, So rather than get married at first sight or go for a kiss on the first date, why don't we just talk first, right? Or see if we're even compatible. And so I was trying to think of a good analogy that would help on this one, because I've thought of some good analogies for other stuff, the real estate analogy for quoting, versus, not people that don't show their price. I have good analogies for that, the free agent stuff, but I'm like, I haven't really thought of a good analogy for the due diligence. So I'll pose that to you guys listening. If anyone comes up with a really good analogy for what due diligence is like, please share it with us. We'll put you on an episode. Maybe you can get famous.
I think it's like a no kiss on the first date type deal. I think you nailed it.
Yeah, because it's not marriage, because marriage is actually like, hey, you're going with a new agent right away. But yeah, I think it's like, yeah, first kiss, right?
It's the non-swipe right or swipe left, whatever. I don't know. I was never on any of those apps. I was married before any of this came out, thank God. But all right, so let's you're doing one right now. So let's kind of walk through the thought process. We tried to come up with some fancy acronym for like how to do it. And the best we came up with is RMCI and then ... S. So in order to even begin the due diligence process, we let me see if I have this right. We can win one of three ways. We win on price, we win on coverage, we win on service. And I feel like the tip of the spear to start off with is the price and the coverage, right? So technically, yes, you are starting with a quote unquote policy review, but it's bigger than that. It's not just, hey, I found this exclusion. It's a bigger approach. So let's start there. What does the first part of your process look like in the due diligence?
Having that conversation with them and telling them what I need. And just being super clear, like, hey, this is what it's going to look like. I just need policies. Super easy. And then we got to have a conversation. And then from there, I'm going to come back and just share kind of my thoughts and see if we can help you or not. That's it.
So we have the initial cold call or whatever. We have that first meeting where
you set your meeting. Yep.
You set your, either have the meeting on the first call or you set your meeting. You go in, talk about your process, how the insurance game works, blah, blah, blah. If they raise their hand and opt in, then you're going to get policies. Once you get policies, then you're going to go back and do another meeting, which is kind of like a research meeting. You're looking for answers because as you start to peel through the policies, it's going to set off little, I need qualification on this. What is this? Why is this here? Yep. And you're going to start to formulate, you're going to get the pieces of the puzzle. And this is where you're going to fill in the blanks to see, like, is the other agent missing this? Is this a big red flag, or am I just like, I just don't have the inland marine policy or whatever, you know what I'm saying? And then you come back and you present, right? So is that the right stages?
Yeah.
Okay.
All
right.
It's the whole overview framework. So then, okay. So, and then in that first conversation with them as well, when you tell them about due diligence, they like it. Hopefully you're taking some mental notes. You kind of know what their overall operations look like. You kind of know roughly their gross sales, their employee size, some of that stuff. But the main thing I try to get out of the first call is like, hey, what are you guys doing? Just like high level, like tell me in your own words, what are you guys doing? And then so I kind of have some of that as I'm looking at the policies already along with their website and stuff. So you get the policies in, right? They send you the policies. What do you do now? I mean, I'm not going to sit here and talk through like a policy review, but like, for example, what I do is I just go policy by policy, not super in the weeds right away. It's just, this is quick. Let's take notes from everything I see. Right. And so usually I fit them on one page to maybe 2 pages max. And so I'll just write on this piece of paper, GL, expiration date, carrier, premium. And then I'll put rate, and then I'll look through I'll write like kind of like sub costs, the different class codes I see. And then if any quick exclusions that stick out to me, right? And I'll just write them down and put a star by them. Then I do that with every policy. So that's GL. Auto, I'll do same thing. Policy, date, carrier, premium, number of vehicles, and that's pretty much it. Inland marine, same thing. I don't need to go through every single one, but that's what I do. So then I kind of go back after I've done the initial look through, and I kind of think about the account, and I might write some questions out, right, that I have. Like, so that's, go through it once and go through it again twice. And this takes probably like 15, 20 minutes. It's not very long. Write down some questions that I have after thinking more about things, after looking at their coverages. And then I reach out to the client to set up a research call. Now, in between that, before I do that, let me pause. Before I set up the research call and have it, I like to get some market feedback first. So this is where the market side of it. So we talked about rates, right? So I got the policies in that kind of checks off the rate box, the coverage box. Then I have the name of the account, obviously. I email the carriers that I think would be the best fit, right? And that's my market research. And I say, hey, have you guys seen this account? When's the last time you saw it? And if you haven't seen it, like, where do you think you come in rate wise, right? Like, what are your like typical rates for this type of thing? Or I might even share on this first kind of deal, like, hey, they're paying around X. Is that something you can compete with? I get that feedback from those underwriters, and I like to have that before I call the client. Doesn't really matter though, because it's just a research call. I definitely want to have it before the final meeting. But then that's checked off a couple boxes, 3 of the 5 I think we talked about, right? Rate, coverage, market. Then the next is the call with the prospect. So you set that up. I keep it super simple. I tell the guy, I shoot him an email, hey, reviewing your policies, just need to set up a call to ask a couple of extra questions, And this could be done over email too. Just depends on what your style is, I prefer to have a quick phone call, but I've done it over email too. Jump on a call, fire my questions away. Usually it's like, hey, tell me about this. If you saw, for example, that they have water and a sewer code, they're a construction company, and be like, hey, how much of your work is water versus sewer work? Questions like that, right? You're not necessarily giving away anything at this point. You can talk about installation floater, right? You don't see that, or you see a limit that's really low. What's your average size job you guys install? So that's it's so hard to have these conversations on a podcast like this, because it's all going to depend on what you found in the actual policy. But you just got to be good at like looking at it and then asking, be curious yourself, and then be curious and then ask those questions to the owner. The other thing they could ask about is, hey, so what's been your past? When you guys have quoted in the past, what's that look like? When's the last time you saw options? What do your marketing results look like last year? Oh, we haven't seen options, or we never look at it. And then now you can kind of cross-reference that with what you're hearing from the market. Oh yeah, 3 of the carriers haven't even ever seen a submission. Okay. So now you kind of building up your case a little bit, and then, say, hey, I'll be back in touch, you end the call, and then you set up, your finalist meeting to come back out and present. I think it's really important to act quickly on a lot of this stuff. I know you've realized that too. It's like, don't get the policies in and literally take 2 to 3 weeks to review. If that's what you're doing, you're going to time kills deals, I think, a little bit, and kills momentum. And so I think it's really important that when you get the policies in, I literally try to review them that day, that night. I'm just kind of curious too, like, oh, I got them in. Sometimes usually on the spot. If I'm making cold calls and I see ding, and the inbox comes in, or email comes in my inbox, I'll pretty much open them right away, just because I'm just curious. Okay, what do these guys pay, and what does things look like? So that's really important. And then get that research call going, keep the momentum, and get the final meeting set up, preferably within 2 weeks, start to finish. The longest part is going to be feedback from underwriters, because a lot of times they just don't. It's not like it's an official deal they're working on. So that's what I found takes some of the longest. So having good relationships with underwriters, or the person on your marketing team, and tell them kind of what you're doing, how you're pre-underwriting up front. This is, hopefully they can respect what you're doing and appreciate it, and work with you. But this is also why having a niche can be, and not even a niche. Here's the thing. You don't even need a niche like
industry.
But if you have 2-3 clients in one space, like I just wrote a masonry contractor. Now I insured 2 other masonry contractors. So I had enough to kind of know, okay, markets, rates, what they should look like. And then I had another one I was looking at, was like a water contractor, right? Does like water utility work. I had a couple other water guys. So all you need is a cluster of like 2 other clients. Even 1 is enough to give you a good idea if you're involved and the marketing side, what the rates should look like. But a sample size of like 2 is really good. 2, 3 is perfect. That's all you need. So you don't need, there's this misconception that you need like 10 or 15 or 20 other accounts to really have a good idea of what, their program should look like. But this is why, when you do niche down, or you have a little cluster of accounts in a similar industry, your closing rate should be pretty high when you quote as well. If you quote, like, so you do the due diligence, you go and you present, you should only be taking stabs at deals that you think you're really going to win, because you should be walking away from, not saying you should be, but chances are you'll be walking away from probably 40-50% of opportunities, and that's just because if they're totally happy, their coverage is great, their pricing is great, and their service, you got no new ideas, right? There's nothing crazy you can offer. I just don't see a point wasting your time trying to go market something, right? Or quote something. So doesn't mean you don't present. You go present your findings and everything. And sometimes things come up, right? You thought they were kind of happy and you present and they're like, no, we're not really that happy. Our agent never spends time with us. You just spent more time with us than we've ever had our agent spend with us over the last 3 years. And so that could be right there. You get an AOR and you're not even really trying for it. It just happens because they realize throughout this process that you're actually a smart person who cares, who works hard, who's involved. And that happens a lot, actually. So it's like you don't even have to try to push that hard for it.
We have rate, we have coverage. You're then checking with the markets to see where it has and hasn't gone. And then we also have down I for ideas. Talk about ideas. Where does that come in?
A couple different ways. It's kind of an open deal, but could be safer, right? You look at their safer deal. Hey, has your agent ever showed you, your out of service ratings are super high? And I looked it up. Underwriters write heavily on this. I talked to a consultant. He looked at it. Here's what he told me. Wow, we've never heard that before. You know what I'm saying? Like, so that's a new idea. Put telematics in or whatever. It could be around HR. It could be around your EMR on the work comp side of things. It could be around captives, group captive conversations. You stumble on an account, they're paying $700,000. They've never heard of a group captive. Losses are extremely clean.
That's insane to think about, actually. That somebody's paying that much and have never heard of a group captive, but they exist.
Yeah. Or they had, and it's been years and they haven't really seriously looked at it again. So that's what I mean by ideas. Like, hey, here's some ideas to help you, Mr. Business Owner, be more presentable to underwriters, improve your program, improve efficiency. Maybe it could be around just implementing a subcontractor agreement. Like, hey, during our research call, you mentioned you sub out $1 million, but you don't have a sub agreement. A lot of underwriters, this might be what's causing you lack of interest from underwriters, right? So that's what I mean by ideas.
Well, then ideas would almost be a part of the presentation process, not necessarily a part of the due diligence process. Fair? Or are you asking about some of these ideas in your research meeting so that you can then come back and present them as solutions in the presentation?
Correct. Yeah, I probably did a poor job when I'm doing a research call. You're asking about some of this stuff, right? More than, you're not just verifying what's in the policy. You're asking about operations, and you're asking about procedures and policies and risk management practices. Like, that's where you ask about all that stuff. But one of the things I ask about too is losses. That's important to mention, because you might get the policies in, look at the rates. Holy cow, these guys are paying like triple. I have 3 other masonry contractors. Why are they paying triple? Man, it's got to either be losses or something funky. Maybe they're doing some type of odd work. So now okay, write that down as you're taking notes, as you're prepping for your research call. Now you got to ask about that in your research call. Hey, what? You have to say, man, your rates are really high. Why is that? You say, hey, just curious, have you guys had a lot of claims, like on the auto side of things? What do your claims look like? No, we haven't had anything. One minor fender bender 4 years ago. So there's nothing else I'm missing, right? No. Okay. And that's what it looks like. It's nothing too crazy, but.
So just to recap again, we have rate, markets, coverage, and then once you dig in, you're going to see these little holes or have questions, and that's where you're going to ask these qualifying questions to then be able to present ideas at the end. Anything else you wanted to cover on the due diligence?
One thought that comes to mind is, if you can do it yourself, that will make you so much more effective when you present and buyer. And not that your client even knows, right? But if you can review the policies, review the rates, do some of the market research with the underwriters yourself, rather than farming. Like, you might have a marketer person that says that you say, hey, can you check with these underwriters? That's fine. But I feel like it's different if you can pick up the phone, at least talk with 1 or 2 of them. When you know this, Trey. I mean, you go back out there, you probably present with so much more confidence when you've invested. There was a couple of deals you and I were talking through, but you were invested in there and you felt like, man, I know my stuff for this account. I know this really, really well. I know where the gaps are. I know what they do now. And then if you win the account and let's say you have to quote it, or if you AOR, either way, that's going to serve you well, because now you know the account really well, right? And you have 80% of the legwork done.
A lot of confidence comes there, and it's we look for shortcuts. There's just not really a shortcut. You just got to get in the weeds and figure it out. And I will say this, like when it comes to rates or coverage or whatever, that's why it's great to have your underwriter buddies that you can call and get clarification. I've got one guy in particular. I'm about to start using him a lot more actually, because even if he's on a deal, even if I'm not using him, I'll send him what I've got and he'll break it down, give me a rate comparison, like, hey, here's what's good about their policy, here's what's bad about their policy, here's where we're seeing, like, it's crucial to have a broker friends and underwriter friends. They'll help you close that knowledge gap for sure.
Yeah, and I found that wholesale brokers are better partners than underwriters a lot of times when it comes to they have to be in the E&S market. But like when I try to do the market research with underwriters, they're more withholding the information. It's more like, here's they'll get back to you slower.
That's fair.
They won't give you as good of information. With the E&S, if it's an E&S placement or you have to use a wholesale broker, they're pretty quick and they're all about service, keeping you happy, right? That's how they win business. And
no, that's right.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to tackle?
How'd your golf lessons go last week?
It's that time of year. It's spring, and the bug has fully set in again. It's kind of like what's that? It's kind of like herpes. Like you get it. And it goes into remission for a while, and then it just comes back full blown. You know what I mean? Isn't that what you're telling me yours is like?
I wouldn't know, but from what I hear, sure.
Sure. So my golf herpes is super flared. I went and got lessons, and I have this guy's a head pro. He's actually like one of the longest drivers on tour back in the 90s. Super nice guy. I never heard him, but also didn't follow golf real closely back then. I was like 10 years old. But anyway, this guy knows the stuff. And I have a good base to work with, but I have a few issues that need to be fixed. And these two issues they both create a two-way miss, right? Your classic LinkedIn post, like lessons I learned, producer lessons I learned from golf. It's like, you can be doing all the right things, but just, two small things can set you off the course. Here's how to fix them. So that's how my brain works. But yeah, so I have like two things I need to work on. I tend to open up my club face, lay it off too much. Apparently you were drilling them the other day, huh?
Yeah, man, I was. Jim Vanettos. Go check him out.
Vanettos.
Still a disciple. Hey, I have not, so just so you guys listening, I have not played golf since October, like a round. I've gone to the range, I think 3 times, but Jim Vanettos, if you find yourself in my situation where you don't get to play very often, just do yourself a favor. Look up Jim Vanettos. You can be away for months. You come back to it. It's just steady.
But you can play more. You just choose not to. I have 5 kids, and we have the same profession, and I find a way to play once every other week. You just choose not to play. Yeah,
well, part of it is like I'm not as addicted to golf as I think I was probably a couple of years ago, but I kind of feel the bug coming back like you. But I've never gone this long without playing. This is crazy. Since living in Texas, I think I'm going to start trying to play at least every other week. But also, I was in a slump, as we talked about.
Sure. Yeah.
So I didn't feel from basically like January to April. I didn't write anything new. And
this year,
yeah.
And then you just hit 3 bangers in a week.
I had four in a week. Yeah, one was a smaller one. They're not. None of them are huge, but I had a couple to start the year. And my year starts November 1st, so it's a little bit different. Anyways, now I can breathe a little bit more, relax, not feel like as guilty for playing. Not that I ever really feel guilty. It just, I don't know.
You can't enjoy it if you have shit sitting on your shoulder, or you have like stuff that you should be doing that you're not. You just can't fully enjoy it because you know that you're procrastinating or that you have something back that you should be getting done. And so I'm with you 100%.
Yeah. No, but I do fully plan on playing the next week, and I will report back to you, once I break 80.
All right. Well, let's end it there before we lose everybody. We put together a step-by-step guide on how to build a book of business from scratch with cold outbound. It's called the Producer Playbook. Link in the show notes. And then also, if you would like to subscribe to the Max Revenue Letter, we haven't written one in 3 weeks.
I saw that.
But we're about to pick it up again. I gotta buckle back down. Just getting, I don't know, just out of off the wagon.
Feeling out of the funk.
Gotta put the plug in the jug.
Writer's block. All right.
No, there's no writer's block. It's just at 7:00 on Sunday. I've just had the fuck it's the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, I get it.
So, anyways, all right, let's end it there. Mike, appreciate you.
All right. Adios.